Call the meeting to order. 6:32.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Chase Munson, absent. Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yep.
Larry Gausted,
Yeah.
Jonathan Glasspool,
Yep.
Josh Gran,
Yep.
Franklin Hahn,
Yes.
and Eric Johnson.
Here. All right.
Minutes.
Minutes.
Ask for the minutes.
We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. You want to make? I'll make a motion. or I
I'll
can't
make a motion. We approve the minutes as printed.
I'll second it.
Who, that was Wayne?
Yep.
Ready for the,
Gotta vote, Paul. Gotta vote now. Approve minutes of meeting.
All in
All
favor?
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Motion passes. Carried. All right.
so, please take notice that an application has been made by GSS on behalf of Cloud One Service LLC and Alan and Barbara Schmitz of 12079 State 44 in Caledonia for a conditional use permit to build a telecommunication tower in the Ag Protection District in Mayville Township on part of the west half, the southwest quarter of Section 7, Township 102, Range 5 of Houston County, and is parcel 0900700001. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands and leaser of said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room in Caledonia at 5:20 p.m. on Wednesday, September 24th. All persons having an interest in the matter may attend the hearing or submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application, and comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department in Caledonia or emailed to zoning, and must be received by Tuesday, September 16th of 2025 to be included for review prior to the hearing. All comments are considered public record. This was advertised on September 20th of 2025, and I should clarify that this is a notice of a continuation of public hearing as well.
All right. Any applicants come forward?
So I'm here on behalf of SBA Communications. Wondering at this time, would you like the applicant to speak first?
You'll be at the comment section afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mike Heisinger. I'm a project manager for GSS. GSS is located at 3311 109th Street in Urbandale, Iowa. I'm here this evening representing our client, Cloud One Services. As Amelia pointed out, a conditional use permit has been submitted to the county for consideration on property owned by Alan Barb Schmitz off of State Highway 44. We were here about a month ago, and the conditional use permit, the consideration of the conditional use permit was tabled. The reason for that is due to the late comment that we received from SBA in objection to the tower that we had proposed. We received, I'll say, short notice of their objection. I received the I guess you would say the notice that there was an objection on my way to the meeting a month ago. So I was caught a little bit off guard, and obviously didn't feel I had ample time to prepare any sort of reasonable response. So after taking some time to review,
Sorry.
you're good. It's been flying around for a while. Good job. But after taking some time to review their objection, I submitted a response to their comment from August 26, 2025, and it doesn't seem as though their objection is reasonable. They state, in fact, hopefully the Planning Commission members of the Planning Commission have had an opportunity to review my response to their comment, And they had suggested that they could accommodate an additional carrier at the same height as the proposed tower with a modification to their existing tower. And to be clear, the starting point for these two different towers, the tower, the SBA tower, the current SBA tower is 10 feet lower in ground elevation than what we're proposing. That tower is also 200 feet tall with two carriers that are currently on it. And what we're proposing is a new tower at 300 feet tall. So that means the center line of our equipment for the first carrier, AT&T, would be roughly 295 feet. We're still waiting on final determination from the FAA as to what height we'll be able to achieve for the area. So in other words, we can propose, and you might even approve, a tower that's 300 feet tall, but if the FAA were to come back and say, you may only build a tower to 265 feet, then that's as high as we can go. But again, looking at their suggestion that with a modification to their existing tower, they could provide comparable coverage to the area, it's my sense that that's misleading. If they were to make a modification to, well, what I had stated in my response is that their suggestion that they could make a, I believe they called it, these types of modifications are commonplace in the telecommunication industry. What they're suggesting, in order for us to be at a comparable height, is a modification of over 100 feet, I believe, if my math is right. That's not a modification. That would require the deconstruction of the existing tower and the construction of a new tower, because the construction of a taller tower means you need wider legs. So you can't just, for lack of a better way to say it, you can't just put an extra 100 foot of tower height on an existing tower. They're not structurally capable of that. So again, the objection submitted by SBA, I respectfully disagree. That was what the item that was tabled. The Planning Commission, understandably, had asked GSS on behalf of our client to go back and do a little bit more research so we could actually speak to this. Their objection is, I guess, on the front end seems very reasonable because of the proximity to where we're proposing. But again, we're proposing a brand new tower that's 300 feet tall. Equipment would be located roughly 295 feet on that tower with starting ground elevation 10 feet higher than the existing tower that's 200 feet tall that has two carriers already on it. As it stands, the existing tower, the highest elevation we could get would be roughly 175 feet with the two carriers that are on it. And effectively, that's a difference of about 130 feet. So again, I would just say that the suggestion that this is somehow easy, or this is commonplace, or this is something that SBA is willing to accommodate is doesn't seem aligned with reality. And I put in my comment, or my response, I should say, to their comment that additionally, even if SBA were willing to undertake the deconstruction of their current tower and replace it with a new tower, there's a few issues that immediately come to mind. How much time would it take to put up the new tower? To what extent would building a new tower affect the existing cellular coverage for the area? Because the tower that exists has two carriers that are currently on it. And then who would be responsible for the associated costs with the new SBA tower? So as before, as I mentioned before, I'm here this evening on behalf of our client, Cloud One Services, and more than happy to address any questions or concerns that the Planning Commission has for me.
So you guys just lease the land that this tower would be on? You don't actually own the land?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So does that land get taxed as commercial then, or how does that work?
That's a good question. There's some back and forth between our the head of development for our client. He's their lead attorney and head of development, and I've asked them about that. There's some language that protects property owners against an increase in property taxes if it were to arise. His stance on the issue is that Wisconsin ruined it for the rest of the country, that they see these towers as improvements, and therefore they can affect your property taxes. He's also suggested that in Minnesota, that should not be the case, but that's not an area that I can speak to definitively. That's not, really within my purview.
Okay.
But ultimately, regardless of how it's taxed, however, if Houston County deemed it as this portion of the property were to be taxed commercially, it still wouldn't have an effect on the property owner. The property, or any increase in property taxes, were they to occur, would be the responsibility of our client.
So what made you guys pick that site, seeing it's so close to another tower? I mean, is there something right there that says, hey, this is where we have to have it?
I mentioned at the last planning commission that this is one of nine towers. Amelia, I need your skills over here. This is one of 9 towers that that our client intends to propose in Houston County, and one of 62 that we intend to propose in southeastern Minnesota. In fact, I was in Fillmore County last week and going through 4 of these hearings. And the reason I bring that up is because if you think about what we're trying to do, if you think about a region, think of it as a giant puzzle. And each site, each tower site, we kind of think of as like a piece of that puzzle. And it's filling in the gaps. So yes, obviously they want to cover Caledonia, but the idea, all I've ever heard from the inception, the beginning of this project, is that they're really trying to cover the more rural areas. And one of the things that I half jokingly say when I get a hold of people and start discussing whether or not they'd be interested in this is that it's one thing if you're on your way home from work and you're trying to order a pizza and you don't have cell phone coverage. It's maybe frustrating. It's a whole other scenario if somebody goes off the side of the road in whiteout blizzard conditions and they can't even get a hold of 911. So from the beginning of this project, our client has always said that AT&T's focus is to cover these more rural areas that are, what's the right way to say it, maybe have been overlooked for a lot of years. Coverage is no secret that coverage in this region is not maybe on par with a lot of other parts of the country. So as you drive through, there's a lot of times where you have only an SOS, which means it looks like the only thing that you could potentially do is make a 911 call. But there's no guarantee of that. So they're trying to cover an entire region. And just so you know, sir, and you're probably asking this question, I just want to make sure for clarity's sake, these sites are not selected by us. They're selected by our client, Cloud One Services, who are working hand in hand with AT&T to meet the coverage objectives they have for specific areas like what we're proposing here, but also for the region at large, if that makes sense.
Yep, no, understand.
Well, I apologize because I missed last meeting, so there might be some duplicate questions
No
here
problem.
on what you already heard, but I guess why is SBA a competitor to your client then? Is that the situation?
I think that's safe to say that's accurate.
I guess the piece I'm trying to understand is why would, if they already have one, why would their concern inhibit you, like your client, from putting another one nearby?
I might not be understanding your question
Like, and
correctly.
Maybe it's the planning commission too on what exactly what happened, but, so my understanding, right, you got a complaint or a question from potential competitor that said, hey, we can fulfill these needs ourselves
Right,
without your new tower here.
right,
We will do that instead.
yes.
Why would you care if they're competitors, right? Why wouldn't you just want to do it anyway?
SBA is trying, it seems that SBA is attempting to force AT&T on a tower that AT&T does not want to be on. There's a financial piece to that as well.
Yep.
I submitted, actually just yesterday, unfortunately, I submitted another conditional use permit application for the Hoka Township, another tower that we will put before the planning commission within the next couple months. I believe we're on the November agenda. That particular tower speaks to a nearby tower where AT&T already has their equipment on an existing tower, but the lease rates that they're being charged are excessive. And just without going too deep into that rabbit hole, the head of development, our client's lead attorney, has said that the average lease rate for AT&T co-locating their equipment on existing towers is $6,000 a month. That's the average. And he cites on the high end a lease of $13,000 a month. That's not a good business model. You know, you extrapolate that over 10 years, you add some escalation into that. And then for AT&T, they own no infrastructure. They're paying these exorbitant rates. And over the course of 10 years, again, with escalation, you might be approaching $1 million, but you don't own a tower. And you have no real financial agreement in place that's looking out for your bottom line. So our client, yes, I would say that it's fair to say that they're a competitor. Every company that builds towers are called build-to-suit companies. So any one of these build-to-suit tower companies, it's fair to say that they're in competition with one another. They're all in the same line of business. In this particular instance, SBA has suggested, has basically tried to force the issue to have AT&T locate their equipment on their tower. I assume at a significantly higher, I don't know, I mean, these aren't discussions that were had. I assume at a significantly higher rate than what our client, Cloud One Services, is building this tower for AT&T for, because they have a partnership with AT&T. And then on top of that, probably the more important issue is that if they were to be, say, quote unquote, forced to locate their equipment on a tower, it's not going to provide the coverage that they need, because proposed tower center line for equipment, for AT&T's equipment, is approximately 130 feet higher than the tower that currently exists.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, that does. So I guess from your guys' perspective, obviously it wasn't here, but for the background, what was the contention to pause it and wait for the answer from essentially a competitor?
To see if that other tower was doable, that could be, use the other tower. Obviously, from what we've learned now, that it's gonna have to change in height.
Was that just to avoid having two towers in the area?
That was my main thing, but that wasn't my reason for it. But
Yeah. So you do the same thing at the end of the day, and it probably take business from the other tower that exists today.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
So,
I'd be hesitant how I answer that, because I really don't know. I think it stands to reason, to the heart of your question. If there was a tower that offered basically locations that were at a better height to provide more coverage for their customers, or for the market, the region, however you want to phrase that, and they offered more competitive rates than some of these tower companies, I'll just say like SBA, that charge high rates based on an old business model where people used to pay 10 cents a minute for their long distance, or their talk and text plans, where now it's unlimited everything, and they'll give you a phone if you sign, a $1,200 phone if you sign up for 2 years. It's an outdated business model for leasing that a lot of these larger tower companies have in place. You can't blame them for wanting to get revenue, right? If this hypothetical scenario is that Houston County, rules in their favor, whatever the right way to say that is, and now AT&T wouldn't locate their equipment on that tower. They've already determined it wouldn't work to provide the coverage that they want. Regardless of SBA's suggestion that it would, AT&T is the one saying, no, it wouldn't. That's why we went for a taller tower. But, I think, there's a lot of different factors at play. And again, I'm certainly not trying to skirt any of your questions. I just, my purview is leasing and zoning. When our client releases us on these sites, my first thing is to kind of go through what is the zoning for the area? Where could we potentially build one of these without, thank God, needing a variance, because, those can be pretty contentious. So, we just do our best to try and make sure that we're following the letter of the law and meet our clients' needs and thereby meeting AT&T's needs for the area.
No, I appreciate it. That, you explained it well. I think that makes sense to me.
You guys have any more questions? Anything? Move on to the public comment.
Thank you.
Bill? Go ahead.
We'll just keep getting stuck here.
All right, hello Commissioners. My name is Jeff Dominguez with the law firm of Burns & Hanson, PA, and we represent SBA Communications in this matter. So I would begin by noting that at the last Commission hearing on this matter, the Commission requested that Cloud One Services submit coverage maps for their proposed tower. To my understanding, Cloud One Services has not provided the maps as requested by the Planning Commission. On that basis, I believe it would be appropriate for this matter to be continued so that the Planning Commission does obtain those coverage maps that they requested and has a chance to review them to inform their decision-making in this matter. So as noted by Mr. Huizinga earlier, Cloud One Services has submitted a letter in which they had some questions regarding potential modifications or potential rebuild to SBA's existing telecommunications tower. Our office just received that today, so we are happy to answer those. We would, want some time to do so in full. However, I do have some preliminary information regarding the questions presented by Cloud One. So to begin with, regarding how long it would take to build a new tower at the current SBA tower site, it would take 30 days to construct, and there would additionally be additional 90 to 120 days to obtain zoning, FAA, and FCC approval before construction begins. I would note that I believe Mr. Huizinga referenced in passing that their proposed tower, Cloud One Services, does not have FAA clearance. So even if the commission were to grant Cloud One approval for their tower, it would not be built any more quickly than if we were to do a rebuild of the current SBA tower there. The other question regarding to what extent the building would affect existing cellular coverage in the area during construction. As noted, we received this letter just today, so our client hasn't had the opportunity to determine that yet, but once we have the information, we'll be sure to provide it to you. And then the third question was who would be responsible for the associated costs of a new SBA tower? And that would be basically my client has leases with their major carriers, all major carriers, AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. And those agreements include predetermined costs that are negotiated between SBA and the carrier. So those would cover the costs if there was to need to be a tower rebuild of the current SBA tower. Other than that, I would just reiterate our position articulated the last hearing in this matter, that SBA's existing tower is fully sufficient to meet the cell phone coverage needs in the region. And if there are greater coverage needs, our client can make accommodations to the tower to satisfy said need. I would additionally note that Cloud One Services has represented that provider AT&T has indicated need for their proposed tower. AT&T is an existing customer of my client. They reached out to them, and AT&T indicated to my client that they have no issues with the existing tower, which fully satisfies their needs. And so I would say that that is about it for my public comment.
Question for you, why are you talking about building a tower now? If a tower a taller tower was needed, why didn't you build it before?
So I'm not familiar with the process of the original tower being built by SBA, my client. I would note that it is uncertain at this stage whether a new tower would be required. I believe that my client would be able to modify their existing tower if there was any further coverage need. And I would just further note that the only coverage need mentioned by Cloud One, AT&T have told us they're perfectly fine with their current tower with us.
I thought you couldn't add on to your tower because it wasn't tall enough to get coverage or whatever it was.
So my understanding.
Structurally strong enough or whatever?
My understanding is that our tower could be, modified in order to meet any additional coverage needs if they are found to exist. And I would furthermore just add that, even if it was a situation where we had to fully rebuild the tower, that would not take place any more slowly than, if Cloud One Services were to construct their tower.
You'd have to come back for a permit, wouldn't you?
I believe we would need to select a permit, that is correct. I believe that's factored into the 90 to 120 days that would be required to get everything lined up in terms of permit, FCC approval, FAA approval, that sort of thing. Then the actual construction of the tower itself would proceed rather speedily, 30 days, if a new tower was indeed found to be needed in this situation.
So if your client would accommodate this tower's stuff they need to put on it, you would charge another fee for that?
So are you asking if we were making modifications to our current tower, if we would charge a fee to the providers?
If you can take over this new tower's business, you would have to charge another fee for that, wouldn't you?
So I'm not 100% familiar with SBA's internal operations in that regard, but I would assume that if there were, further services being provided by the tower, that would probably have a requisite fee to go with it.
So if you got, SBA's got a tower now and, and then another tower is supposed to be built now, I understand, down by Hoka. So then is SBA gonna go down there and build a tower? Is this a competition thing? Because one tower company has to lower their rates? Is this good for the public to have competition so that we don't pay so much, or doesn't that come into play?
Well, I do believe that competition is important, in our, economic society. However, I would just state that where Cloud One is planning to put the tower makes no sense when we already have a perfectly fine tower right next door to it. It's just, telecommunication towers, cover a certain area of land. I don't see what the benefit would be of having one tower and having another tower right next to it, which I think is another reason why it'd be important for the commission to be able to review the proposed coverage maps for Cloud One Services Tower in this matter.
So, a question for you. So, is SBA claiming that there's some legal reason they can't, or is it because they want essentially a monopoly on the given market that carriers can't contract with another tower?
So, in that regard, I would, refer to my colleague's statements made at the earlier commission meeting held in this regard. I would say it's not that we're seeking a monopoly here. It's just whether it makes sense for Houston County to approve a brand-new tower right next to our pre-existing telecommunications tower. And, presumably that would have a negative effect on my client's, finances if there was a new tower built right next door. But I mean, the main principle we're getting at here is that, we already have a telecommunications tower which provides coverage for, de facto presumably the same region that, Cloud One Services Tower would provide. And so I don't really see a need here for a second tower if they would just both be covering the exact same region, more or less.
Is this, so similar argument would be there's a Casey's General Store across the street and Quick Trip moves in and builds a Quick Trip. We don't need two of them, right? They do the same thing, but it's good for the consumer, right, in that scenario, to create competition among them?
So in that scenario, I would say, I can understand the metaphor you're going for there. I do think it's a bit different. Different, service, companies, stores may have, different products that they offer, or, they may be open different hours, or, one may have better customer service than one another. Here in a situation where it's just a tower being put up to receive telecommunication signals, it would be like exactly the same of just two towers, right next door to one another, providing the exact same service. Whereas, for, competing retailers, there would be, differences between the service providers that, may lead a community member to select one store over another.
Is there any federal, state, or county ordinances on these towers? Who decides, where do you go to get a permit to build a tower? Who governs it?
Yes, so in that regard, I would, preface by saying this isn't my primary practice area, but my understanding is you would need, FCC approval for, the communications aspect of the tower. You would need FAA approval for, making sure like the tower's not going to interfere with, planes or, helicopters flying overhead. And then additionally, you would need, zoning approval from, the county here. And, if there are any other, applicable municipal authorities as well.
Thank you.
Am I to understand that the FAA hasn't approved it?
Are you referring to the Cloud One Services Tower?
Well, no, the other tower. Yeah.
We're just kind of getting off topic on public comment. It really shouldn't be a dialogue here.
Okay.
I would just note, Commissioner, that from the information available to my client, Cloud One Services, the new service provider trying to build a tower here, has not obtained FAA approval for their tower yet. And so if there was a situation where we had to, rebuild our tower, it would take place just as quickly as if they were to construct a new one.
Is there any other comments?
I'm happy to respond to that if I'm allowed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I just scribbled down a few things as he was speaking. First of all, the suggestion that SBA could build a brand-new tower as quickly as this proposed tower would go up, I think, once again, is misleading. We've already filed for permits. We've already filed with the FAA, the FCC. We're just waiting for their final determination. And so we've been at this for several months. In terms of developing an actual site plan and looking at what kind of lease space they have, are there any other negotiations that need to take place? Those are all the details, the finer points of any kind of construction plan that I think is, once again, you don't just come up with a construction plan in 20 minutes. There's a lot of moving parts. Additionally, when asked about, his response, the gentleman's response in terms of who would be responsible for the costs associated with it, he talked about a contract between SBA and the carriers. And essentially what I may have misunderstood, but it sounded like what he was saying is that sounds like it would be the carrier's responsibility. Well, the carrier in this case is AT&T, and they prefer to work with our client, Cloud One Services. That's why they've put us to task. My marching orders, so to speak, came essentially from AT&T. I'm representing our client, Cloud One Services, but AT&T is the one who hired them to say, can you guys build us towers in these 62 spots in southeastern Minnesota? I wouldn't be here if it weren't for AT&T determining a need for better coverage in the area. And again, the insistence that they could build as quickly as we have, I think, is a little bit misleading. The first thing that the gentleman brought up was the lack of the coverage maps. When I brought it, I asked our client for that. I said, well, we're going to need coverage maps. Then when we had an opportunity to really review SBA's comment, to our proposal, which again, I didn't have a sufficient time to really dig into it before the first planning commission meeting, they laughed at it. We didn't develop coverage maps because at 130 feet, you could explain that to a small child, that you're not going to get the same coverage if you're 130 feet lower. And then again, this insistence that they can just modify their tower. Is it a modification that is somehow possible, maybe extend by 20 feet? Or is it deconstructing a tower and putting it up as quickly as what our client can with as far as they are along in this process at this point? I just, you know, respectfully, I don't think that, I disagree with the gentleman who is suggesting that SBA could provide as good of coverage or could offer as good of a location on their tower to provide the coverage that AT&T wants. And in terms of, I can't speak to, he had suggested that AT&T says they're perfectly okay with the tower. That's news to me. That's very surprising, but I don't know anything about that. It would be very odd if, to me, if AT&T was having conversations about locating their equipment on an existing tower and at the same time hiring our client to hire us to go out and site a new tower for them. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but I can't speak to that. So those are the only things that I really wanted to bring up, and of course, more than happy to address any questions that any of the planning commissioners may have for me. In terms of financial considerations, just the last thing, I'll be very quick. On this very short summary from, which I'll leave with Amelia and Michelle, our client is a one-page summary of why sometimes it's very difficult to co-locate on existing towers. Talking about a shift of a half mile can make a significant difference. Again, when you take in the large picture of think of it as a puzzle, in a piece in a puzzle. But then the financial part of that is that, I'll just read this a couple sentences here. He says, the current market rate for a co-location, that's what this would be on this SBA tower, current market rate for a co-location on a rural site is, at best, approximately $2,000 a month. The current market rate for ground rent associated with a new tower is $400 a month. Again, old business model, where people are paying 10 cents a minute for their long distance, where larger companies like SBA could charge lease rates that would be by today's standards considered exorbitant, but 20 years ago, you know, who didn't pay for their long distance plans? So I'll leave it at that. Of course, again, happy to address any questions you may have for me.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Explain to me what this cover map is. Is that, or did you already explain it, that is your potential clients, that your cover map you're talking about?
Yes, sir. It would be anticipated coverage before and after. So they're sometimes referred to as propagation maps. In other words, it's kind of like a hypothetical. You build a tower here, you put your antennas on it in whatever area that you're proposing, you know, in this case, right off of State 44, with the equipment that they put on it, what kind of coverage would it provide to the surrounding area? So in this case, we have a 300-foot tower competing with a 200-foot tower that's sitting at a lower elevation with two carriers already on it.
So it still comes down to I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Still comes down to my question before we're getting into competition here, so the customer will get a better rate. That's the way I stated it before, and I think I'm stating it that way again. That's the way it looks to me.
Might be AT&T makes a little more, but either way.
I think AT&T will be paying a more reasonable rate. One of the things to keep in mind is that if the average rate for companies like carriers like AT&T to locate their equipment on these towers is $6,000 a month, they don't have to stay on those towers. Carriers can choose to leave areas altogether. They usually have 5-year automatic renewal terms. So whether it's Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, at the end of that 5-year rate, if they can't, or excuse me, lease term, if they can't negotiate a more favorable term that is part of a sustainable business model well into the future, a smart business manager is going to say, the bean counters are going to say, this doesn't make any sense. what kind of market share are we picking up in Hoka? You know, some of the people who are, or some of these other places that are around, they're relatively small communities. If you've got an investment for a tower that's, you know, let's just say at minimum somewhere around $250,000, the 178 people that live in some of these smaller areas, they're not gonna pay for that. It's providing good coverage for the entire region. So everybody knows in southeastern Minnesota, the carrier to go with is AT&T.
Have you seen this elsewhere where you have a tower and then a competitor tower built very close to each other?
Yes.
Has the FAA given you approval for?
No. No, sir, not yet. We have applied. We're waiting to, they will issue what's called a determination of no hazard. And in that letter, what they do is they say, you are allowed to build a tower up to this height.
Yeah.
We don't have,
Airport right in Mayville Township, that's a big
right,
difference.
right. And so, those are the considerations that the FAA makes the final determination on. So as I stated before, we could propose a tower to 300 feet, but if the FAA says you can only build to 100 or 275 or something like that, then that's what we'll be forced to build. Our client would like to build to a higher height, but even the difference of, say, like 275 versus 175 turns out to be 110 feet if you factor in ground elevation, actually more with the existing carriers on that tower.
So what if that other tower is the height that they're gonna limit to?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry?
So if the SBA's tower is the actual maximum height that the FAA is gonna allow, you'll essentially just have the same height of a tower.
Yeah, I think that's right.
If, I know you maybe can't answer this, but, so if you guys get that far and it doesn't really help you, you could just scratch the whole project, really.
Yeah, we're in,
It says that if this passes tonight, we're putting posts in next week.
oh, it won't be like that. Yeah, it's a process.
Until you have actual
To
approval.
know where you can go for height.
Yep, we need to wait for that final determination. So if it was to be approved or recommended for approval, come back, you know, in October and get final determination as to whether or not we can move forward. We can't do anything. There's FAA, FCC, State Historic Preservation Office. We need to work through the National Environmental Policy Act. There's about 10,000 boxes to check. I'm surprised there's towers that exist anywhere with all the moving parts on these. So the regulations are steep. But to go back to your question, we're in what's called the option period. We have, that affords us an opportunity to do our due diligence. That option period is called out in the lease agreement that we have with the property owners. And if during that time, say we were to go and do what's called an archaeological dig, they just turn over a couple shovels full of dirt, just make sure that we don't come across any historical artifacts. If we were to come across that, that could kill the whole site. If they were to uncover, say, Native American burial site, we're not building a tower there. It doesn't matter if the FAA says you can build to 1,000 feet. We're not doing anything there. And we had a site outside of Grand Meadow where we encountered something similar to that. It wasn't Native American site, but it was a historic site. There was pottery, things of that nature. We had to relocate the entire site from Mower County.
So Amelia, where'd these coverage maps come from that were in our packet?
Those were included with the public comment from SBA.
So
Last
SBA
May.
provided existing site coverage and then they proposed site coverage. That's the way I understand it, so I don't know where they got the proposed site coverage map if that's not their client, so. Did they talk to AT&T to get their proposed site coverage?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah,
Yes. I am not familiar with how those were obtained. We're not asking to consult it with
well, it's kind of, I don't know what they used for height of the tower, but it makes it look like the existing site's a better coverage than the proposed site coverage. And I don't know how that could be if the tower's 100 feet taller.
Well, I would just, note my colleagues' prior comments in this matter and say it's our position that these coverage coverage of the site maps are fully accurate.
If your client, so FAA comes back and says you can only build the tower to the same height, less 10 feet or so, so you're ended up being the exact same as the other tower?
Sure.
Would your client still move forward with the project?
Honestly, I don't know how to answer that. I think at that point, I think, well, I'll just be frank. I think SBA's case would have a much stronger case for, well, hold on a second. You know, you were talking about a difference of 130 feet. Now, if the highest you can get is where our, say, the available spot for equipment on our existing tower, which probably wouldn't be that, but if they could make a minor, what would you say, modification, an actual minor modification, then I think their case would be stronger. But at this point, there's no reason for us to believe that we won't be able to get significantly higher. Again, filing with the FAA, it's just part of the due diligence. There's no reason for us to think at this point that we won't be able to get maybe all the way up to 300 feet. We don't know. Nobody in this room can truly speak to that unless there's somebody here from the FAA tonight. But unfortunately, I don't mean to be disparaging, but it's the federal government and we work on their timelines. So there's nothing we can do to get them to, speed up the process.
Do you see other towers of this height, like in the county or in the surrounding counties?
Yes, as a matter of fact, another agenda item is a tower that's being proposed in the Wilmington Township that's also for 300 feet. So I would say that our client's preference is to build 300-foot guide towers whenever they're able to. One of the main reasons for that is the coverage that you get. It's not just the coverage that you get for AT&T, but having a taller tower means it's a more attractive co-locatable structure for additional carriers if they were to come to the area. So just imagine Wilmington Township, there's really nothing around, there's no competing towers that I'm aware of. You build a tower, you put AT&T's equipment as high on there as you can go according to FAA's feedback, whatever they come back with. And then say, the area expands or Verizon just doesn't like the idea of AT&T being the best player in town. Now they have an available spot near the top of a 300-foot tower. And so they're able to propagate their signal out to the area much better. And again, in terms of whatever puzzle they're trying to fit a piece into in terms of their coverage for the area, that would be, why certain companies select certain towers to put their equipment on.
How close is that tower to the airport?
The one that I've proposed,
This one here, this one here.
the one that I've proposed, sir?
Yeah.
If you give me just one moment, I can grab my file. I think I might have spoken to that in my,
It's miles away from the
It's
airport.
miles away?
okay.
Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, there's instances, in fact, hope to propose 6 sites in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And one of the names of one of the sites is La Crosse Airport because it's right in the airport. There is a monopole tower that's 75 feet tall within the airport grounds. There's several factors that come into play in terms of how much height you get for a tower. It's not just if there's a nearby airport, what is the path of the runway? So if, you have a tower over here, but the runway, heads this direction, if a pilot's worth their salt, it's never gonna be an issue, right? As long as they're following dedicated flight paths, this is my elementary school understanding of how that works, but it does come into play. It's not just proximity, it's also how the traffic exactly takes off and lands. So that's why you can build sometimes a pretty tall monopole right next to an airport.
Yeah.
Questions? Paul?
On the existing tower, it's 200 feet, right?
That sounds correct.
If they went to 300 feet, like Eric asked, they'd have to get another permit? Different
Yeah, yes.
FFA rules, height?
Well, for the county's rules, I would say that that's a modification that would require at least an amendment to the CUP or just to redo the CUP.
And it'd be a completely different type of tower. I think the tower right now does not have guy wires on, does it?
It's a self-support
It would
tower.
have to have guy wires on the new 300-foot tower.
That's not necessarily true, but the cost of a self-support tower that would effectively need to be 310 feet to match the proposed height of the 300-foot tower that we're proposing, the cost would be astronomical. The cost of steel, the cost of everything has gone up, but the cost of steel is one of those things that's really, it's one of the reasons our client also likes to try and build guide towers. We're not always allowed to do that. Fillmore County does not allow guide towers, for example. But a 300-foot self-support tower, you know, you can build anything if you have enough money, but they're quite expensive.
So last time you guys made it through all the findings, but we didn't actually vote on that and approve those. Would you like to go through findings again, or, you did-
From people here, so.
you did
Been
approve
two
all of
people
them?
that weren't here last time.
Yeah,
So go for, start over?
yeah, yep. We have to,
Okay. So, number one,
I make a motion, we strike 9 and 13.
oh, yeah.
Second?
All in favor? Or,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
okay. So number one, that the proposed use conforms with the county land use plan. Analysis states that Houston County's vision statement is to provide quality, essential, and affordable public services to the community, and the effect of having improved communication services is interwoven in reaching many of the supporting policies and goals outlined in the land use plan. Would you like to do roll call or just voice vote?
Want to do roll call? What'd you do last time?
Last time we didn't, but
Yeah, last time it was just voice
You
vote.
could just
Did we
go
roll?
vote.
it don't make
Speed
a
her up.
difference to me.
Do a roll call. Like we normally do, I guess.
Or I think we normally do the voice, don't we?
Normally we just do aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Analysis states that there is not a comparable co-locatable structure available in this vicinity.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Analysis states that the applicant has identified that there are no long-term uses associated with this proposal that have the potential to degrade water quality. All topsoil removed during construction will be regraded and seeded upon completion to minimize erosion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Number four, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Analysis states that the applicant identifies the standard design for tower projects includes leveling of tower compounds and access drives. There will be a 2,500 square foot gravel compound in what is currently a grassy strip between ag fields, but the tower and ground components should not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Five, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Analysis states that geotechnical reviews will be conducted before the foundation is designed, but the applicant does not believe soils will be prohibitive. NRCS has the soil classified as a silt loam, which is the predominant soil in the county, and there is nothing within the description to indicate that there may be issues citing a structure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Six, that the potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Analysis states that pollution hazards should be limited. Waste generation from construction and maintenance of items such as batteries, diesel fuel, or propane for generators, and electronic waste will need to be disposed of properly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Seven, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Analysis states that this proposal will utilize existing driveway access and easement, including both road access and utilities as part of the scope of this project, along with the extension of both underground electric and fiber optic lines.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Eight, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. Analysis states that outside of the initial construction, there will only be periodic check-ins at this location, and there will be space within the leased area for parking for maintenance employees.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
9 is not applicable, so 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Analysis states that this proposal will be most intrusive to the landowner, but they made the decision to lease out the site. Cell towers do create a visual impact, but the planning commission may feel the benefit outweighs that cost. In addition, there's another tower in close proximity, so visual plight is not out of character for this neighborhood.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Analysis that says that this is a transition area on the outskirts of the city of Caledonia and closer to the city is residentially zoned and heavily populated. While further from town, it changes to farm and non-farm dwellings and predominantly tillable land. This proposal will remove minimal land from production and will not impact adjacent landowners' ability to construct dwellings.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Analysis states that this proposal will not include any offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, or vibration, and tower lighting will be in accordance with FAA regulations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
13 is not applicable, so 14, that the intensity of any proposed commercial or industrial development is not greater than the intensity of the surrounding uses, or not greater than the intensity characteristic of the applicable zoning district. Analysis states that this is considered a commercial use, but there are no density requirements for these proposals. There are towers throughout the county in areas of higher population concentration, and that makes this a reasonable location to site another telecommunications tower.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Analysis states that the FCC is responsible for setting and monitoring parameters on health and safety standards related to cellular phone towers. Issuance and permits indicates that they believe those standards have been or will be met. In addition, the proposer has cited the tower in a location that should have minimal impact to structures, public roads, and neighboring properties in the event of collapse.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll make a motion to accept the findings.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, now I have a question for the board. We tabled this last time because of the cover maps. Are we satisfied with the explanation of the cover maps? I'm asking.
So I think their defense is that they don't need cover maps because it's 100 and some feet more. The defense is essentially common sense is the answer, is what we heard, I think.
Eric, you were here last time. How do you interpret that?
Well, we got coverage map that was provided by
I don't know.
the competition here. And, like I said before, they got the existing site and the proposed site. So the proposed site is worse, but I don't understand how that can be, so. I'm satisfied, I guess, but you have a question?
Yes, I would just like to note that to my understanding, the proposed coverage maps that we provided were proposed extension of our pre-existing tower rather than being a proposed coverage maps for Cloud One's tower. And those are just, we came to that based off of extrapolation from our current tower's coverage.
Everything.
I'm confident that the coverage maps, I mean, the coverage is gonna be, it's gonna be beneficial, it's gonna be better, being a 300-foot tower.
You're confident that what was presented tonight is what you're saying, or you want additional?
No? I'm confident that the coverage maps, the coverage that they're saying that with 300-foot tower is gonna provide is sufficient.
Well, I just wanted to clarify to make sure that everybody on the board understood what.
I wasn't here last time, so I might have missed part of this, but I would almost come at it from the angle of even if the coverage is exactly the same, to me, comes down to the can Quick Trip build a Quick Trip next to a Casey's, right? What it seems like is two competitors, and one of them wants to have all the business in the area. The other one wants to come in and take some of the business. Even if they provided the same coverage, I don't see where we would limit their ability to come compete in that area. Would be my frame of reference on it, but. Hopefully
Well-
that's better coverage though. That's-
I'll make a motion that we recommend granting conditional use permit for a telecommunication tower in the agricultural protection district, but two conditions. Is that the way, did I read it the way it's worded correctly?
Yep, that's correct.
I'll second that.
Do a roll call vote on that?
Yep. Wayne,
Yep.
Larry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Josh,
Yep.
Franklin,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Chase is gone. So this will be presented on October 7th. The meetings start at 9 a.m. and it just depends on where you're at on the agenda.
Thank you.
It's the Diet Coke.
Well, I was afraid to drink it because I was afraid of what was in it.
All right. Next one?
He's up again.
Yeah, yep. So please take notice that an application has been made by GSS on behalf of Cloud One Services LLC and Christopher and Ann Myrie in care of Gregory and Elizabeth Myrie at 2456 Old 76 Road in Caledonia for a conditional use permit to build a telecommunication tower in the Agricultural Protection District in Wilmington Township on the following premises: part of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 14, Township 101, Range 4, and it's parcel 15015500. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands and leaser of said described lands. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room in Caledonia at 5:40 p.m. on Wednesday, September 24th, and all persons having an interest in the matter may attend the hearing or submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department or emailed to zoning and must be received by Tuesday, September 16th of 2025 to be included for review prior to the hearing. All comments are considered part of the public record, and it's advertised on September 10th of 2025.
Board, explain this one to us.
It's the same guy.
Thank you, Amelia. As Amelia noted, we've submitted another conditional use permit application for a 300-foot guide telecommunication tower and associated facilities in Wilmington Township. And of course, happy to address any questions or concerns the planning commission may have for me.
This is random and I don't want to get on a tangent because I know this probably isn't exactly, but, so it says in here, AT&T will be the anchor tenant.
Yes, sir.
So AT&T doesn't make something with the person to say you can't support any other telecommunicate, like Verizon, et cetera. They don't like say, this tower is only for us type thing. other people can jump on the tower?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of our client's business model, is to construct towers and, you know, kind of to what was previously noted, afford carriers the opportunity to look at maybe a more competitive rate to put their equipment on a new tower for kind of the little guy in town.
So day one, it could only benefit AT&T customers potentially, but over time, it could benefit everyone in the area cell coverage.
Yes, I mean, I think best case scenario for our client would be to have a full tower. These towers are structurally capable of handling 4 carriers from day one, from the moment that they're built.
Gotcha.
So
Yep, cool.
they would love to have a full tower.
Yeah.
I have a question. You made the statement that in Fillmore County, they do not allow guided towers.
Yes, sir.
What anchors or guide wires, whatever you want to call them.
Yes, sir.
Does Houston County have such a thing as a zoning ordinance in place to that fact?
It doesn't prohibit guide towers, but there is a telecommunications standard for Houston County.
So that's something that the commissioners said in Houston County, or how did that? Or is it?
I don't know when it went into place, but yeah, at some point the commissioners would have voted on that.
Okay. I don't want to take up
It's-
your time. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's pretty limited for telecommunications towers. A lot of it's focused, I think, on Highlines because it references county engineers' approval of siting things within right-of-way. So I think it, like I said, it's more transmission lines and underground pipelines and stuff.
You know, in that what happens, so if a tower is no longer used, do they have to remove the tower, or does it just sit there and rust?
We currently don't have a decommissioning plan, but I suppose that is something we could put in place.
Can I speak to that just very quickly? Actually, our client has abandonment or removal of improvements, I believe is what it's called, within their lease structure. I mean, I'm guessing I could submit a redacted lease to Houston County, so you could see that language. They have, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's something like either a security bond or a letter of credit in the amount of $30,000 in just such instances where the tower is not being used anymore. There are a lot of jurisdictions that do have abandonment language within their zoning ordinance, and you know it can vary the timeline. But basically, if you're not using the tower, you need to take it down. Mm-hmm. And our client, within their own lease, has language that speaks to that. In other words, they've got something in place to address that if it were to come up.
And that's with the property owner?
Yes, exactly.
That's agreement between you and the property owner. So if that tower is no longer being utilized, you've assured the property owner that tower will be taken down.
You got it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, of course, that also checks the box that's typical of many jurisdictions that say if you're not using the tower for a period of, you know, like again, the timeline varies, but 12 to 18 months is usually what we see. If you're not using it, it needs to come down. So I would anticipate that, say, if in the unlikely event that something like that were to happen in Houston County, or if they didn't have any carriers on one of their towers for, say, a period of 11 months, they would probably be expecting to receive something from Houston County saying, take this as notice. If you don't have something in place within such and such a period of time, you got to take this thing down.
So is this agreement then between the tower company and the landowner, then is that recorded in the recorder's office as such? So if something happens to the landowner, it is recorded?
There is a memorandum of the option period, and then there's a memorandum of the lease. The lease itself, the actual particulars of the lease, say the business terms, they say the escalation, what they're being paid and at what rate it's escalated, things of that nature. That's not something that the county has, would have the ability to see, just because it's a private, agreement, business arrangement between the tower owner and the property owner. But as I said, I'd be more than happy to provide a redacted lease that, you know, pulls out some of just basically the business terms and the specific, I mean, you guys would be able to figure it out in pretty short order. But you know, it's just professional courtesy. We don't want to share what somebody's making off of one of these
No,
deals.
that wasn't what I was
I
asking.
understand that, yes, I understand that, sir. But I'd be happy to provide, you know, a redacted lease just so you could kind of get a feel. I could just give you a draft. So you
Just
know.
asking the question, and I just,
We're learning.
So is the FAA approved this one for 300 feet yet?
I think we did just submit full CDs and FAA's determination of no hazard for a 300-foot tower here.
That sounds correct, yes.
Yeah, I think that was like 2 days ago we got it.
Okay, perfect.
And,
This one's more ready to go than the other one we just did.
correct. Yep. And again, it's federal government, so I wish there was somebody I could call.
On this, kind of going back to this removal thing, just thinking out loud. So if you start building 300-foot towers, and the previous towers were 200-foot towers or 175, then the 5-year option comes up and it carries 4 carriers, and there's only 2 carriers on another given tower. Won't they all jump to the 300-foot towers, and then the 175-foot towers would be abandoned essentially over time?
It's a good question, but I would have to make a lot of assumptions.
you
It is really a great hypothetical, and it makes perfect sense. I think there's some sound reasoning behind your question. It's like, well, if we can pay, say, $1,000 less a month to be on a tower that's taller, why wouldn't we? So yeah, I mean, I know what I would do if I was a business owner.
That's just something to think about, I guess, on the abandonment side of towers, if that occurs. Like technology essentially being outdated, because they used to be 175 feet, now they're 300, and 175s over time become obsolete.
Plus they're charging exorbitant
Well,
fees.
And on top of that, yeah, you have a worse product and you're charging more.
It is not always the case, though, that a tower, a taller tower is the best case scenario. I know it sounds going to sound strange from everything that we've just talked about, but with some of the technologies, you kind of, a lot of times companies don't want to build taller than what they have to. It depends on what type of coverage that you're trying to get. So if you can
Depends on
find.
topography, doesn't it? I mean,
Topography's part of it, but also the population of a certain area. So you might find, you know, I did quite a bit of work in the Madison, Wisconsin area when I first started in this role, and you would regularly find towers that were 75 feet tall. And, you know, and a lot of times that was governed by the ordinance, but then our client at the time was US Cellular, and they would say that perfectly meets our needs for this area, but there's so much dense population in that area. You don't need something tall. You're not, you know, you're talking about topography. You're also talking about who are you trying to reach. They're not trying to reach way out into the farm field, you know, that's 3.5 miles away and then fill in those gaps. They're just trying to cover that kind of immediate populated area for the region. So sometimes you see what are called small cells. They put them on top of light posts, utility poles. They just have these weird little things off of light posts in cities. And a lot of times people are like, what is that? Well, they're basically little cell towers. And it's good enough to keep the coverage throughout the entire area, but you couldn't use that in a more rural setting. Otherwise, you'd have those little small cells on every other utility pole for, you know, for hundreds of miles. It just, from a standpoint of being cost effective, it's not a very good solution.
See's how we're asking questions. You ever put solar panels on these cell towers?
I don't believe so. They do sometimes install microwave and sometimes two-way radios. So, I was talking about Madison Metro, Village of Wanakee. We had proposed a tower, and I believe their police department wanted to put their two-way radio equipment on there, which in terms of loading for a tower, it's next to nothing. So we're always happy to oblige whenever possible local jurisdictions if they have, you know, two-way radios, their police department just different kinds of communication devices that they use that are, you know, exclusive to them. Whenever possible, we like to kind of partner with jurisdictions and help them out in those ways. But yeah, I don't think, there may be instances where companies utilize solar on the ground in order to, you know, maybe to maintain power or help offset some of the costs for power. But in terms of actually putting solar on the towers, I have not heard of it. Doesn't mean that it hasn't happened.
Does there have any more questions? Is there any other public comment? Should we move to the findings then?
I make a motion, we strike 9 and 13.
I'll second that.
Better vote on it.
What's that?
Better vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's turn. Just doing a voice vote again on these.
Sorry, I got rid of the wrong packet here. Did you catch those motions? So number 1, that the proposed use conforms with the county land use plan. Analysis states that Houston County's vision statement is to provide quality, essential, and affordable public services to the community, and the effect of having improved communication services is interwoven in reaching many of the supporting policies and goals outlined in the land use plan. And you wanted roll call?
Voice vote.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
2, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Analysis states that there is not a comparable co-locatable structure available in the vicinity, and the tenant is looking to improve cellular services in this rural underserved area.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
3, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Analysis states that the applicant has identified that there are no long-term uses associated with this proposal that have the potential to degrade water quality. All topsoil removed during construction will be regarded and seeded upon completion to minimize erosion, regraded and seeded upon completion to minimize erosion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
4, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Analysis states that the applicant identifies that that standard design for tower projects includes leveling of tower compounds and access drives. There will be a 2,500 square foot gravel compound within the old feedlot area, but the tower and ground components should not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
5, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Analysis states that geotechnical reviews will be conducted before the foundation is designed, but the applicant does not believe soils will be prohibitive. NRCS has the soil classified as a silt loam, which is the predominant soil in the county, and there's nothing within the description to indicate there may be issues citing a structure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Analysis states that pollution hazards should be limited. Waste generation from construction and maintenance of items such as batteries, diesel fuel, or propane for generators and electronic waste will need to be disposed of properly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Analysis states that the proposal will utilize existing driveway access and easement, including both road access and utilities, as part of the scope of this project, along with the extension of both underground electric and fiber optic lines.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
8, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. Analysis states that outside of the initial construction, there will only be periodic check-ins at this location by maintenance staff, and there is space within the east area for parking of maintenance employees.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
9 is not applicable, so 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for purposes already permitted. Analysis states that this proposal will be most intrusive to the landowner, but they made the decision to lease out the site. And cell towers do create visual impact, but the planning commission may feel the benefit outweighs that cost.
I had a question on that. Why does the cell towers create a visual impact? Because it looks hazardous in the community?
Just because it's very large and you're in a rural setting where you don't typically have you have grain dryers, things such as that, but it'll be a new visual impact to the site.
Okay. Go
All in
ahead.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Analysis states that this is a rural area of predominantly tillable land and associated farm dwellings, and this proposal will remove no land from production and should not impact adjacent landowners' ability to construct dwellings or otherwise develop and improve their land.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Analysis states that this proposal will not include any offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, or vibration, and tower lighting will be in accordance with FAA regulations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
13 is not applicable. So 14, that the intensity of any proposed commercial or industrial development is not greater than the intensity of the surrounding uses or not greater than the intensity characteristic of the applicable zoning district. This is considered a commercial use, but there are no density requirements for these proposals. The goal is to eliminate dead spots for cell service within the county, which requires them in proximity to those underserved areas. This tower will be within an existing building site, and while overall it's not a common proposal, it matches the characteristics of other telecommunication towers here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Analysis states that the FCC is responsible for setting and monitoring parameters on health and safety standards related to cellular telephone towers. Issuance of permits indicated that they believe those standards have been or will be met. And in addition, the proposer has cited the tower in a location that should have minimal or no impact on structures, public roads, and neighboring properties in the event of a collapse.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Make a motion to accept the findings?
You make it?
I'll second it.
All, you do a voice vote or
Yeah,
all in
this one.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
You guys have any, other things to add to this before we? Board?
Would you like to include a decommissioning requirement, or?
Not a terrible idea, but
We didn't do it the last
yeah,
time.
that's the thing. We didn't tell the last one, so I'd probably say that.
No, with the caveat being that the board could potentially add that if you wanted to do so.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the board based on the current proposed motion listed with the two conditions.
I'll second that. Roll call vote?
Larry?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And Wayne?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very much. Appreciate it.
All right, what do we got next here?
I'll take a short break.
Okay.
He can't get out, can he?
No, but he might, his short break might be a long break.
Where does that go to? Oh. I think Tom's gonna go with that.
Yeah, he had.
I thought it was locked.
That would have been funny. Hear him tapping. This is, that house. House, yeah,
Tim waited long enough.
it's a long night again. Well,
Tim's gonna move a house in Yucatan.
yeah.
Actual landowner.
It's straightforward. I just had a lot of questions on the towers, cause I've never seen, there's, you know, maybe,
Much about it.
you know, you don't know a lot of this info. Some of it really is just so you're educating yourself, but it really doesn't play a role in the decision. But it's interesting, cause you're not gonna get that info from many people. You know, I mean, Eric, he knows it, but I think it's interesting.
I don't know everything.
I mean, you gotta kinda understand this technology because it's going to get more and more.
Yeah, it's gonna be more all the time.
I mean, and if they're gonna put more of them in, there's a lot of dead zones in this
With a
county,
lot of dead spaces,
you know, so.
you know?
Well, plus,
When you're trying to,
they're getting soaked by the
Oh.
current one, so
but I mean, there's
it's all,
so
That's
many
half of it
it's all
right
spots.
about
there.
the money. Yeah.
There's so many spots, so you can't carry a call. If I gotta go drive and I got drivers calling, I just can't wait to get out of this area, because I can actually, you know, you're on the phone with the same guy 5 times. Trying to get to the, hey, what, I lost you. Well, call him back in a minute. Oh, I lost him again, you know.
Really?
Especially if they're broke down, they're freaking out. They think,
God, when
they
nature
think you're hanging up
calls
on them.
Yeah, I should've went too, but I think this will be a short
ready?
one.
Yep,
Come to the front.
so please take notice that an application has been made by Tim and Gwen Nelson of 2693 County 13 in Houston for a conditional use permit to build a dwelling in the Ag Protection District in Yucatan Township on the following premises, part of the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter in section 10, township 103, range 7 of Houston County. Said applicant standing and making fee are as fee owners of said described lands, and a hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room in Caledonia at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, September 24th. All persons having an interest in the matter may attend the hearing or submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application, and comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department or emailed to zoning, and must be received by Tuesday, September 16th of 2025 to be included for review prior to the hearing. All comments are considered public record, and this was advertised on September 10th of 2025.
Up to the front.
Thank you for patiently waiting.
Yes, sorry about that.
It's okay.
We learned a little bit extra,
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
or at least listened in.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit what you're
How
gonna
you
do
gonna
here.
get that house, Tim,
Yeah, well,
that narrow road?
yeah,
You're gonna have to do a lot of cutting.
I guess we're just seeking a conditional use permit for moving a house from about a 5-mile distance from the valley up on top of the ridge on a 6-acre parcel.
So where's the house coming from?
It's on the end of dead end road of John Deere Road, just down in Yucatan Valley.
Okay, I'm just pulling up on a map. I
Beautiful
don't know where I'm
house.
looking on the.
They built a new home there and they wanted this one either burned or moved, so.
Okay.
Who do you even go to hire to do that?
There's a company out of, there's some in Iowa, but the company I got hold of is in Lake City,
Yeah.
right around the Kellogg Lake City area.
I don't know if anybody looked at the not the Tri-County, the Fillmore County Journal. There's a huge article on them moving this house.
Yeah.
Really?
It's gonna,
Fascinating.
So it still happens.
so, and we have talked to the township to get permission to trim some trees along the route to get it up to the ridge.
How wide is that house?
It's 28 by 28 square. Then there's a garage section that's gonna be,
Added on?
would be another extra move.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You're more ambitious than I am.
So you've got.
It's a beautiful home. I would hate to ever see a
Live there.
home get wrecked, as nice as that one.
You've got the foundation and everything already set
No,
up?
no, not yet.
Because we
We
had to
went
get
through all the
permission
permitting and
first.
stuff, so we
Oh.
don't have
That's
the,
weird.
yeah, we don't, yeah.
You're trying to do everything
It's,
legal.
yeah.
This seems backwards already.
We have had everything checked as far as the septic, the soil.
You gonna let your wife live in it?
Your daughter.
Our daughter is, I think, we've kind of been helping the kids out, all of the kids all the way through, so
Good.
it's kind of a good scenario with it's close and I've got the,
Is this an open quarter?
Yes.
Perfect spot for a house too.
Looks like it's really not farmland that you're putting
Oh,
it
it's all
on.
woods.
Wooded.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with the site. I mean, is it, you have
Yeah.
to bring it up onto a hill or?
yeah, it's actually just
No.
gonna be right off of County 13, right up by, right across from us. It's a 6 acre parcel. It's,
To move it, we have to bring it up a hill. We
yeah,
have to bring it
yeah,
up,
it's gotta go up.
Cooley.
It's gonna go up Mooley Cooley Road.
Okay.
So, and actually, the worst road to get the trimming on is John Deere Road has
Yep,
the
John
most
Deere
work
Road's a
to
bad one.
Very
Yeah.
narrow.
do, yeah.
Quite extensive trimming, but
Are you gonna try a shortcut there?
a shortcut?
Go through one of Jerry Lee's fields?
No, we're gonna just,
You're gonna stay on
we'll have a,
Gotta
it would
stay on
be, it
solid
would be a
road.
police escort to get out and come around and then go right back up
I
there.
wish we
And then
could
there's,
just helicopter it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. and then,
Get a helicopter just to take it up there.
yeah. They could probably do it, but the cost would be probably off, it wouldn't weigh out, I don't think. But there's I counted, there's 5 lines that would have to come down. Tri-County would be removing them as we go. And it's putting them right back behind us and stuff, but.
So you guys live on that corridor though?
We live
Yeah.
across the road from the area that the house will go on.
I'm just looking.
Their house is on a different quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the structure that's right there is a.
quarter wise, it's on a
They're gonna
different,
put the houses right next to the road.
In the wooded corner of the property there. Yeah.
yeah.
Good spot.
Yeah.
It's a good spot for everything.
And visibility's good both ways as far as traffic coming on each side and stuff like that for entering and leaving the property.
You'll have to get a permit from the county for a drive.
Yeah, I've talked to Brian and everything on the,
Alright.
yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We've got most all bases covered as far as that goes, but
Okay.
This is our last
I
step.
don't know, we're trying to do it the proper way and just try to, if it works out, but.
Is this gonna be a slab or a basement then for the foundation?
Basement.
Basement, yeah.
Yeah, just because of the plumbing and stuff,
Which daughter's gonna
the
still?
old style house.
That doesn't matter, Green.
What's that, Wade?
It doesn't matter.
Which daughter?
The other one.
You guys have really any questions? You said you.
I was up
checked
and
it out.
visited with Tim,
Okay.
and he showed me the location.
Yeah.
And I know the house specifically because it's my mother's house where she was born.
It's a nice house.
It's a beautiful house.
It
and
is.
It's too nice to tear down.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's why we were like,
So
I
I'm willing
talked
to
to
put the
Brian.
effort in to try to save it.
I went and talked to Brian about the second driveway.
Yes,
You can put it in to get the house in, but you have to take it out once the house is in.
it does have to come back out.
And it's a $50 fee
Okay,
for a permit.
we'll let the
Okay.
You can
movers
put it
decide then
in
if
to
they.
get have your truck come in and situate it and come back out, like we talked about that night.
okay, okay.
He won't allow a permanent second
be-
driveway,
okay.
but I've seen a lot of second driveways in the county.
My
Yeah.
sister has one too.
When it snows, you won't see
Are you
that
gonna put a
second
basement
driveway.
on it?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a basement under the
Oh, that's
28
gonna
by
be
28, yeah,
That's gonna be a beautiful place.
yeah. And I probably wouldn't do a basement, but on the old style houses with the plumbing and the, all your ductwork and stuff, you almost have to have the basement under them.
Yeah, you do.
You have to have that
Yeah.
full room. But,
I don't really have any questions, you guys. It's a house, putting it back up, so.
Maybe I'll have a party when we get done with it.
Probably should. Should.
You plan on getting this all done this winter yet with the main house?
I just talked with the mover, 2 days ago, cause he's still gotta come at me with the price for the hall yet and stuff, so, but if all went good, I'd love to have it up there this fall yet,
Right, yeah.
or winter. And it's gotta happen it would have to happen before the weather got too bad, because we don't wanna they're already gonna have a wrecker ahead of that if it comes up that hill to to be able, just in case like a drive shaft went or something, they would have a backup for, so
That
it would
makes
have to be,
sense.
weather conditions would have to be right,
Makes sense.
but, so that's the plan. But
I don't have anything else. Is there any public comment? Doesn't look like it. Well, should we move to the findings?
Make a motion, we strike 9, 12, and 14.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So when we strike stuff, we don't have to have a motion to do that. I thought before we just struck it and all is good, but
This is a process, I guess, that's always been followed to my knowledge.
it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So number one, that the proposed use conforms with the county land use plan. Analysis states that the land use plan makes numerous references to preserving prime agricultural land, and the fact that non-farm dwellings are only allowed on marginal ground promotes this goal.
All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed?
Two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. The applicants intend to move the dwelling onto this property for their daughter so she can be closer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Analysis states that a septic designer has been on site and located 2 type 1 septic system locations, which will mitigate water quality concerns, and an erosion control plan has been approved by the SWCD.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Four, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Analysis states that the applicant will need to meet all requirements of their erosion control plan to address any runoff concerns before, during, and after construction, but the addition of a single-family dwelling should not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff.
All in favor? Opposed?
Five, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Analysis states that the soil survey of Houston County identifies slope as the main limitation for building sites on 586D2 soils due to it requiring extensive land shaping. This site is also partially located on soils classified as 103C2, which identifies hazard of erosion as the main limitation, and both recommend that the building be designed to conform to the natural slope of the land.
What's 103C2
It's
classification?
just the soil type.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Number six, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Analysis states that adequate treatment of septic is likely the biggest potential pollution hazard, but a septic designer has determined that a system meeting state standards can be installed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So seven, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Analysis states that this is a new building site, so new utility installations are necessary, and all costs are the responsibility of the applicant.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Eight, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. Analysis states that there is sufficient off-street parking to accommodate typical residential use.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nine, that facilities are provided to eliminate any traffic congestion or traffic hazard. Never mind, that's not applicable. 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Analysis states that the primary use of the surrounding acreage is agricultural or recreational in nature, and the addition of a single-family dwelling will not impact that use.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Analysis states that this dwelling meets the density standard in the Ag Protection District and will not impact surrounding agricultural fields and recreational land. Orderly development meeting ordinance standards can take place.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
12 is not applicable, and 13, that the density of any proposed residential development is not greater than the density of the surrounding neighborhood or not greater than the density indicated by the applicable zoning district. Analysis states that this request meets the required agricultural protection district density limitations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
14 is not applicable, and 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Analysis states that a non-farm dwelling should not negatively affect the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare if constructed according to the approved erosion control plan and septic design requirements.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion, we accept the findings.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any other discussion on that?
Make you wait long enough to do this.
Well, that was something new,
Interesting.
something new for us, so that was all right.
Gonna make it, Larry? You gonna make the motion? You haven't made any tonight.
Motion to accept everything?
Oh, you gotta read it here.
Going in your township, you might as well get something out of
Yeah.
this.
I make a motion to grant the conditional use permit for a single dwelling house for Tim and Gwen Nelson.
I'll second that.
With the two conditions?
Well, dwelling on under 40 acres
40
with two
acres.
conditions is the way it's worded here.
Okay, and recommend. Larry, and who seconded that? You did?
I think you seconded it, didn't you? No. Oh, okay.
John,
Yes?
Josh,
Yep.
Franklin,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
and Larry.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Post your progress on Facebook.
Yeah. Actually, the house that they moved, it is.
Just too bad us taxpayers, and you're a taxpayer in Yucatan, we spent all that money to cut them trees up Moly Cooley. We could have had you cut them and wouldn't cost us.
Right.
Well, if there's a few more to trim,
Couple more,
I've
yeah.
already said it's gonna be at no cost to the township.
I
was
know
gonna do
that. I just had to get that in. Another comment, you talk about moving, tonight we heard that Hoka needs businesses. Back in the 50s, we moved, well, I worked for my uncle, but with Hans Hafe from Hoka moved houses and buildings. So Hoka had a business, another business down
Oh,
there
sure.
back then.
Well, in the Fillmore County Journal, there's a
Interesting.
website that you can watch that house that they moved.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't done it
really?
yet, but yeah,
Oh, that's gonna be great.
yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch that.
We'll have some
break like, do
video too.
they break all the sheetrock when they do that? Or
It'll
they-
crack. It
It'll
can
crack, it'll crack in
It'll
certain
crack.
areas, but
Yeah.
boy, they're pretty good as
Yeah,
far as.
that's amazing.
It is.
The house that they moved to the Fillmore County Journal, it did break out one big window, but that was
Yeah.
it, so.
That's awesome.
And on this one, they've already done some work up above and they kind of, it's what they call they hot roof the way upstairs in the attic area. And then they've spray foamed it, so that's structurally, that's gonna make that a lot stronger.
Oh, yeah.
As far as for a move. So
Yeah.
that should
Good
be quite
idea.
a help there too.
I think this is really cool because this used to happen all the time. I remember
Well, it was
watching them
just
go
such a-
by with houses once in a while.
Yeah.
Such a shame to,
What year was that built?
Larry, do you know what year it was
Nineteen
born?
twenty-eight, is it 1928, that home?
Yes, something like that. My mother was
Yeah.
born in 24, I think, 27, something like that.
Okay,
Well, then it must have been built before then.
maybe.
Used to be an old log
Before that.
house or before.
That's really a
Oh,
good
okay.
house.
Okay.
Oh, is that off in the back?
That was right where you come into the driveway. Have you been to where the new house is built? It's right before that. That's where the log house was.
And that house they built there was just huge.
The new one, you mean?
Yeah, the
Oh,
new
yeah.
one's just.
Beautiful.
Great uncle built that.
Huh. Yeah,
He was a
lot of history there.
stonemason / carpenter.
Yeah,
Need a motion to adjourn.
that's a beautiful home.
Make a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, guys.
Yes.